And welcome back to The Unscripted Show, a show where high school students work hard to achieve something larger than life. In this episode, we'll sit down with some successful teenagers who are paving their own way in our community. So with that, sit back, relax, and enjoy our show. Thank you.
Hi, welcome back to another episode of The Unscripted Show. I'm your host, Maahir Murad. Today we're with Anvitha and Ambuja.
Hi guys.
Hello.
Hi.
And we're just going to have like a discussion, a Socratic of sorts on politics, the political atmosphere of 2020. So let's start off. What are your guys' like most pressing views right now? What are you guys are fighting for?
You can start.
Oh no.
Have fun.
I think my most pressing views are probably, well, as of right now, well, whoever's watching this, it's March 16th, 2020. So coronavirus is a big thing. So I think the way the American government's handling coronavirus is probably a big thing for me. Some other things that have just been going on in the realm of politics within the last few months have been abortions coming back up to play. I'm pro-choice. Another thing has been, I know I've seen this a few times, is like been reducing the voting age to like younger than 18, which I think is a bad idea. Legalization of marijuana, fine with restrictions for me personally. I think that's, and then like immigration, that's an entire topic we can talk about because I have opinions on that, but it's like, I have to explain them. Mm-hmm. And then is Trump a good person? And no.
What about you, Anvitha?
Kind of on the same thing. We kind of have the same political beliefs. I mean, we are debate partners at the end of the day. So, but I think another thing is gun control. That's
How did I forget about gun control?
Yeah, that's a huge thing. Like, it's a significant problem. You can see it happening, and like just not acknowledging it as a problem or a threat is just stupid.
Also, the drug wars, like opioid abuse. I think that's a big one for me too.
So let's start off with how Trump is handling the coronavirus. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
So I'm going to be honest, I don't know a lot, like a large amount about the topic. But I think that compared to the way other countries are handling it, there's definitely not enough, like it's not just Trump, it's our government in general. We don't have enough emergency plans put in place for a pandemic like this.
Yeah, he did get rid of our pandemic team
He did do that. So, yeah. So I think we don't have enough tests available. There are not enough testing facilities available. And the fact that, I saw this, but the fact that Trump's considering shutting everything down within the next 72 hours, I don't think is a good choice.
Okay, so on that, one, in this entire, because it's a global issue, right? It's a world issue.
Yeah,
obviously.
I think at the end of this, China is going to come out as a winner. Okay, they had the entire thing and they solved it. They shut it down. They put Wuhan on lockdown. And then we're going to come out as the loser. And like at the bottom too, because we're not taking the measures and we don't have the tests, as you said. But on this shutting everything down, I think that's not a bad idea. Because the virus is of such that it spreads rapidly. It's increasing exponentially. We don't know how to stop it. So maybe, because we messed up at all the previous steps, maybe now all we can do is shut everything down.
I mean, I get that. I think that my concern with everything, which is so capitalist of me, is the economy. Yeah, let's talk about that. You know,
they stopped the thing today as well.
Yeah. So I think my concern is that a lot of, I don't know how we're going to come out of this.
Yeah.
Right? You know, you shut everything down. And for, corporates, Costco, Walmart, Sam's Club, whatever, all of that stuff, you're fine with them. Like they have enough money to like where
top
they're not
of the chain.
Yeah. But
not
then we're
at the bottom though, we still
we're
have
talking
workers.
about like small local businesses who are shutting down. And it's not like they would have a lot of customers anyways, but they're losing a large amount of money. So I guess my concern is, how are they going to come out of this? Or how are we as a society going to come out of this,
Because it's still a 2% mortality rate.
Yeah.
But even then, that's about 1,000 people have died in Italy already.
Yeah.
And their population a lot of the population is older.
Yeah.
As is our population, right? And we have 330 million people in the United States.
So
it's a trade-off.
That's a lot. Yeah,
it's a trade-off. It's like, okay, are we going to shut everything down, take the economic impact, or are we going to let it play out, not do what we should be doing, which is testing and all, and then let people start dying?
I guess that, I guess my concern with shutting everything, my concern isn't with shutting everything down. It's with the idea that like everything's going to be immobilized for no one knows how long. And then again, I don't know exactly what Trump meant by everything, like, is that government offices, or is that, just, I think I need more clarity.
Yeah, I think there's
like, what does everything mean?
It could be like Italy, everything.
Yeah.
It's literally,
Where it's like
everything. Or is it just like restaurants and stuff?
I think a big thing about like the way the U.S. is dealing with it too, like, I mean, you could, I guess, in the way that you're talking about it, maybe shutting everything down is right, because we haven't been able to prevent it, so now we have to suffer the consequences or whatever. But I think it's like, also, like, I think the whole, like, right now we're on break, right? The 2-week quarantine kind of thing. And I think that...
Which they're breaking. They broke quarantine to come here.
Oh, oops.
From the schools.
Don't kill me.
But I honestly... I
think,
like, that... I think it kind of was a good idea, because, like, it's more of us, like, people our age, we're not going to get that affected by it. Like, even if we get it, our chances of survival are pretty high.
Yeah.
But I think it's just kind of like your social service, because you don't know, if you go to Target, you don't know what old lady or someone's there who has like a compromised immune system, and like we become the carriers of that. So I could see where like the whole like shutting everything down would work, but I think it's more of like Ambuja was saying with like the small businesses and stuff, it's like a long-term thing. Like economically, if we go down even more, what's going to happen? Like, is it going to be worse than what we're having to deal with right now?
So I want to shift this conversation a bit broader to the election coming up in November.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the election? Who do you think, prior to Corona, who are your bets on?
I think that Trump would have won.
Yeah, I agree.
And I guess the reason I say that he would still win after is because I don't think he's losing support, because he's this has happened before with like other world events. When something bad happens, you can blame it on that bad thing happening,
Wag the dog, isn't that the name of this theory?
I don't know. I have no idea. You're more knowledgeable than I, bro. I don't know.
No, because I was like, every time something happens, I think it's wagging the tail or something. Every time an issue happens, presidents will be like, all right, let's go to war. So don't worry about this.
Oh, yeah.
We got to go fight.
Yeah.
Wagging the dog or tail or something.
Yeah. So it's basically
it's called something.
Yeah.
Every
It's
time
called
there's
something.
It's called, I know what you're talking about.
No, but every time there's like an election, you can notice there's a conflict that happens or something that happens.
There's a world war.
Yeah, like 2008 recession. Woo!
War on terrorism the year before, and like till now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so I actually disagree with you on the point that after Corona, I don't think Trump's chances of re-election are much lower than they were before, because a thing like Corona hasn't happened before.
Right. Yeah.
And the way Trump handled it is not going smoothly for anyone. Okay. Before, the economy was going fine, it was going strong. Now the economy is in a free fall.
Yeah.
Before, people like had faith in the government, had faith in its abilities. Now Trump is like, okay, maybe we shut down everything for.
Maybe.
Like, we might have to shut down everything. Like, it's now you're like, okay, is this man capable? Is this man the right person?
Yeah.
Who do you think is now after the whole Corona?
See, I just don't think Joe Biden's gonna win.
I don't think
that's my thing.
Joe Biden can beat Trump. It's not. And Sanders beating Joe Biden is also very unlikely because Joe Biden has so much support.
Super Tuesday.
So with that being said, if Trump wins re-election, it's not going to look good. Okay, like it's gonna be a very like poor election, because one, Biden's not capable enough, and Trump's gonna have, after like failing in Corona, he's gonna be like, all right guys, give me a second chance,
Yeah, well, I also think that's why Trump chose to kind of, I feel kind of, I don't feel bad for Mike Pence, but Trump kind of shifted the whole Corona thing onto Mike Pence.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on Mike Pence and the way he's handling this?
No.
I hate that.
Okay,
well, I think he's more capable than Donald Trump in handling it, but I don't think he's handling it the right way.
I feel like out of the two, I think Pence is doing a better job.
I also think he's smarter in general.
Yeah.
So.
And I think he's also, he does want to do something about it. He doesn't think it's like a hoax. Unlike how he thinks like global warming and smoking cigarettes doesn't cause cancer. Other than that, on Corona, I think he's pretty focused. But even besides that, the entire administration is just failing terribly on this.
Yeah.
So now let's, moving on from this failure, let's talk about what other things do you have to say about, like, let's talk about gun laws, right? As students, this affects you a lot, right?
Yeah.
So it was a pretty big deal back in August.
Yeah.
And then it just went down, because we live in a world where every other day a new issue starts.
Yeah.
It's not like the other issue is solved. It's just like another one popped up. Like, okay, now we're talking about like Trump and Iran, and the next we're talking about like, oh snap, global warming's a thing.
Yeah.
And then you forget about that for like a
Yeah.
week, and then
Yeah.
it comes up the next Wednesday.
Yeah, so Anvitha has strong opinions.
Yeah, I don't think it's an issue that we need to like continually like just disregard, because it's such an important thing. Like, we get affected by it every day. Like, imagine you being a child in kindergarten and having to do a practice drill because some school shooter could pop up, because the chances of that is just going up like significantly. And like, I might be wrong like with the statistic or whatever, but I'm pretty sure there's like at least one shooting every single day in the United States for the past like year or something like that. I might be.
I think you're right. I don't think it's
Something
like a
like
mass.
school
I don't think it's a
shooting.
mass
yeah,
shooting.
it's not
though.
a school, but like some sort of like shooting kind of thing. And I think it's something that like we need to address now, because it's becoming like those people that have gone through like school shootings and stuff, that stays with you for the rest of your life, and that's a burden that no one should
Not
ever
even
have
that.
to
It's the
face.
fear of it might happen to me.
Exactly.
You could be sitting in
Yeah.
class like, dang, what if? Like, you shouldn't be thinking these thoughts.
Yeah.
While
So-
you're trying to learn.
While you're trying to learn, right?
Yeah.
You should be
Yeah,
focused
yeah.
on learning, not on who's at the door, right? So now I want to shift the conversation to us as high schoolers at this age. What are our responsibilities? Like, you guys are pretty well versed in the political spectrum of the world right now.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
Hey,
not to
you
flex.
you can say.
Kinda.
just a little bit.
But a lot of people aren't, right? They don't. I think, okay, so a lot of people, what their parents tell them, they'll
Is
like
what
listen
they-
to it
Oh,
and
yeah,
they'll
I
spit
hate
the
that.
same thing
I
out.
hate
They're
that.
like,
They just regurgitate it. Stop. Stop it.
it's so
I hate it.
funny.
Oh my
'Cause you'll
God.
ask them, you're like, okay, just explain this point for me. And they're like,
My parents said
well, my
so.
dad was saying.
Never mind. I'm not going to say names.
Don't call people out.
I was
Yeah.
going to, and then
Don't
I
call
realized
people
that
out.
this was.
No, but yeah, that's like a lot of, if your parents are Republican, it's more likely you're Republican. Same thing for Democrats. So it's not your own ideas, it's like what you're, and to be fair, if you hear the same ideas growing up,
Yeah.
over time you're like, yeah, I agree with that. You know, because you're not exposed to anything else.
Yeah.
It's not your fault. Like,
I
mean,
don't think it's
yeah.
your fault. And I don't think there's anything wrong with your parents telling you an idea and you believing it,
Yeah.
as long as you're researching it by yourself.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, like, my parents growing up, they were never overtly, like, political, or at least dealing with American politics. You know, they have their beliefs about Indian politics.
God,
and
that's
that's,
a
like,
whole
that's
other
not my
thing.
thing. But about American politics, they weren't ever, like, overtly political about things. I learned it from my brother. So when my brother would tell me things, I would go and independently research it. And I think that's what's important, right?
Yeah.
Like, Anvitha can tell me something and I can believe it. She tells me it 5,000 times, as long as I'm as long as I'm researching it, and I'm still gaining my own independent
Yeah.
views. So there's nothing wrong
So
with
do
your
you
parents
keep up
telling you
with not
things.
just domestic policy, but also foreign policy?
I try to, but I'm gonna be honest. I'm not like I'm more well versed in how America interacts with the world versus how
What are your
like
thoughts
the
on
world's
that?
interacting with each
What are your
other.
thoughts on how America interacts with the world?
So I think that when America's interacting with other countries, we're very nationalist, which is obviously going to happen. You know, we're dealing with ourselves as a country, but I also think that we don't have regard for the other country involved a lot of the times, which makes sense because, you know, it's like your country, you're dealing with your best
Yeah.
interests, but at the same time, you have to think about how we interact with others as a society, right? So I guess my viewpoint on American politics is that I think we need to kind of broaden our view
Not just
and
America.
not just focus on us.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about, like, let's say I was American, like you were China. Wow. Instead of just focusing on what I'm receiving out of this, focusing on how I can make China's a bad example because they already have everything, but how I can.
I'm gonna jump in real quick.
Thank you.
I'm gonna jump in. So this year our debate topic was part of it was about like Saudi Arabia and arms sales, and with that, like the whole I don't know if you might be a little versed with this or something, but the Yemen humanitarian crisis and stuff. So a lot of it was us talking about, oh, should the U.S. continue to sell weapons to Saudi Arabia when we know that they're using them for this genocide, right? So like I think it's a lot of like that. Well, this is kind of off topic, but like it's kind of like thinking about stuff like in that perspective of the series of chain reactions that our actions as the U.S. have on other countries is important. Like I think that's what Ambuja was kind of trying to go for.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, nationalism isn't always a bad thing, but like sometimes you got to think about there's the rest of the world too, bro. Like
Yeah, and I also think that like feigning ignorance is a
Yeah.
large part of American foreign policy.
But is that possible now? Is it possible to fix that? Because you ask like your average Joe, and he's like, "No, China's a terrible communist nation," and like,
the thing is I agree. Like, I don't think it is, which is so pessimistic.
So if it's not like, okay, in your mind, right? You guys are high schoolers. You guys are the future. When our nation is ignorant, the world is also pretty ignorant. Combined with the effects of social media, adding on to the ignorance, adding on to the spread of misinformation.
Yeah.
When that is your status quo,
what
do you do to address that?
Honestly, I think that the best way to address, the misinformation aspect or like the ignorance aspect is going through the same routes that misinformation is spread. So I think that it would be actively trying to combat misinformation through social media, through word of mouth. Like let's say Anvitha heard something that I know isn't true. It would be me addressing that instead of just letting her get away with it.
And so a big part with that, and it's also with democracy, is to do that you have to be educated.
Yeah.
And now we're making the assumption that people know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
I think it's like there's never going to be a perfect like solution to it, but I think it's just like trying to get there, doing your part. Like, we're fortunate enough to be learning about stuff and like issues, and we built our own like opinions about it, but like we know about it to a point where like we can also address the other side, I guess.
Yeah.
So like telling other people about it, like not necessarily forcing your values upon it, but like just about that issue, like teaching them about it or like pointing them at that situation could like encourage them to learn more about it and research more about it.
So if you had to deal with an ignorant person, right? Your average...
Every day.
Every
Me talking
day.
to her. Me talking to Anvitha. Every day.
So if you had to deal with that, and you know their views, you know the average American's views on the world, and you know they're wrong.
Yeah.
If you had to like break the truth to them, what would you tell them? How would you tell them?
So this is something that's actually pretty difficult for me, because when I'm talking to someone who either has different viewpoints or like has a bunch of misinformation, a lot of times people want to cling to it, right? Like they're like, no, it has to be true because I heard it on CNN or Fox, and it's like, don't listen to them, like that's not a good news source. So I think the best way I try to combat it is by actually showing them where I get my information from, versus just me saying, oh, according to Pew Research Center, blank, 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 blank. It's me showing them and be like, hey, this is how I found my information. Or me putting it in, I guess something I also try to do is try to get in their perspective and see what they think the faults in my argument are. Because even if the thing is a lot of people will actually believe what you're saying, but they're not going to admit that they believe what you're saying.
That's totally fine. I don't think you have to like change your opinions, but like even just being open to listening to it, I think is because it brings up like a discussion, and I think discussion is the best way to like solve anything. And it like just brings like, even if me and Ambuja have like different, we usually have the same, like we're kind of on the same boat, but like even if we had different viewpoints or something, talking about it, even if it might not like change our opinion on it, I think is really important, because it like kind of makes you think about things.
So before we wrap up, I just want to ask you, you guys are pretty well versed in all these aspects. Do you think with this information that you have that the United States of America is the #1 country in the world?
Oh God.
Do you want me to go?
I'm trying to think of how I should answer.
The pressure is on.
Yeah.
Okay, so
you can go.
We'll like take turns.
Yeah, we'll bounce off each other.
I think that we have to split it up into categories.
Yeah.
Socially, politically, economically. I think that economically, as Americans, we think we're so, oh my gosh, chef's kiss, we're so good. But we really ain't. Like, I'm being honest.
There's room for improvement.
I think the way we budget if we're looking at a worldview, I think that, let's start with politically, actually. Because I have to think about economically. I have to think about economically. With politically, I think that we're great in that I think we stick to our words. Mm-hmm. Like, I think that we are actually a democracy, and we are a representative democracy, which is a lot more than half the other countries in the world can say.
I'm going to jump in real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
I think with like the whole, like with the political, looking at it in politically, you could say we're #1, I guess. But I think it's in comparison to other countries, and compared to other countries, like Ambuja was saying, I guess we have more freedom and stuff like that. So in that perspective, yes, but like it really depends on like who you're comparing it to. You get what I'm saying?
And I also think, but that saying that, you know, we're number one doesn't mean that we don't have room to grow.
Yeah.
You know, I think that every day we face political issues like voter suppression, you know, like that's something that's huge. And while, yeah, it's a minority of people whose votes are being suppressed versus, you know, other countries where those votes aren't even heard, those are still issues that we can improve on.
Yeah.
So I think politically, I would say, yeah, I think we have one of the better or quote unquote best political structures, but that doesn't mean we can't improve. Mm-hmm. You want to go to economics or social?
Let's go to economics.
Economics. I think we got so much room to grow in economics.
I think it's like I'm not saying the U.S. obviously is a global hedge, so like obviously
that means hegemony.
We're doing something right, you know, like we're one of the biggest economies, but like I think like she was saying, there's always room to improve, like with the way that we deal with situations and stuff like that. So.
Or the way we budget our money.
Yeah. Like
I know this is like yeah, like the fact that we just raised the debt ceiling last year shouldn't be something that's happening. Yeah. You know, we're what 22, 23 something trillion dollars in debt. There should be a way to address that. And instead of just, you know, allowing us to spend more money, we should be, trying to reduce that amount of debt.
Stuff.
Or spending how much did we spend on the military last year? I don't remember.
I don't remember.
But spending a large amount of money on the military when trust me, we have enough to go. Like we have enough weapons. We have high tech.
The next 20 countries combined.
Exactly.
And we also have enough. Like I know it's always like, but we can improve on technology. But it's like you have high tech technology enough.
And another thing that, like as you were saying, like compared to other countries, China is the largest growing economy for the last 17 years consecutively.
Yeah.
We're not even like if you want to talk about a good economic growth, we're not doing that.
Oh yeah.
We may be number one right now, but like
17 years from now.
Oh no, it's like crazy. What China was 17 years ago and what it will be in 17 years is crazy. We may be number one temporarily, but at a larger scale, we're not, because everybody manufactures outside the U.S., like majority.
Yeah.
China has all the like contracts for this stuff. They're increasing their economy. So I think economically, temporarily.
I also don't like. I'm gonna kind of push back on that, saying I don't even think we're the best right now, because if you really, really think about it, we are almost not completely dependent, but we are a large amount of. That's not the right word. We're dependent on China, like for a lot.
Oh yeah.
For trading. You know, like as soon as, you know, trade talks stopped with President Xi, we were screwed. The whole Taiwan thing, like we're so dependent on China. So I don't even think we can say that we're temporarily number one, because at the end of the day, if China pulled out of trade talks, which they have in the past, our economy would go down.
Yeah.
And so with that, I would like to thank you guys for coming on the Unscripted Show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us again.
And that's our show. Thank you so much for listening, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel. We'll be back every Tuesday with more content to keep you going on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Thanks again, and always remember to live unscripted.